Hi, Dr. Staci. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me. Excited to be back.
Yes, our pleasure. Our first interview was so fun for me when they asked me to have you on again. I was like, yes, yes. Remember, we could have talked for hours. And I'm excited to have you here to talk about something completely different than our conversation the last time. And you're going to be at RHS this year. And I think probably doing a little bit of this discussion. So I can't wait to dive into our topic. But what I would love to do to start is, could you tell us a little bit about your current practice, what you're currently doing in the health and wellness space? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about how it's, evolved since the start, because I think it's going to be important to what we talk about.
Yes, absolutely. So I started out, I'm a dentist. So this is the dental trajectory I went on, but I started out after my residency as an associate. And I think sometimes working underneath someone and having a mentor can be helpful, or at least shadowing someone. I encourage everyone to network and connect and learn from others who are a little bit ahead of you, maybe in a similar industry. And so I took that information, and then I did open my own practice, and I had a business partner. And the practice was marketed. It was this business partner's second location. And the practice was marketed as a holistic office. But as we moved forward in our relationship and partnership, I realized that wasn't completely accurate, and certainly not to the level that I wanted to practice, which was, functional medicine, whole body health, et cetera. So I ended up buying out that business partner, and then I rebranded. So I've gone through a couple rebrands, and we'll get to that, but I rebranded and I really changed my practice structure. And this is when I incorporated in more health coaching, more nutrition counseling and coaching, really looking at every system in the body beyond the mouth. And it was scary at first to do this, number one, on your own, and to kind of uproot and change a practice model. I have been told I'm one of the only, if not the only, functional pediatric dental office in the country. And this was, again, like 10 years ago. So, and it's been great, but then I realized there was an opportunity. I was having patients travel from very far away, the East Coast, and other countries even, to see me, which is obviously so flattering and humbling. But then it also just showed me that there is such a huge opportunity and need to help people, and I can't help everyone. So how can I help facilitate training other dentists and opening other offices for people to have this same experience? And so I now partnered with a bigger entity who is helping me open other offices. And so we went through another rebrand because when I bought my business partner out and originally rebranded, I chose a very localized name. I named my office NoPo Kids, and NoPo in Portland, Oregon refers to North Portland. And so it was hip and it was cute and it was neighborhoody and community based, but I wasn't thinking big, right? And so because it was so geographically isolating, the name, I had to rebrand again. And so now it's Bloom Kids Dentistry. So just, I think we'll get into this, but just as we're talking about launching our careers and our businesses and branding, and it's important to try to think big and to think about where this could go. And so I guess it wasn't a big deal, but it's a little bit of a regret I have, that I wish I'd thought of that earlier.
Yes. Yeah. I love like a few things that you bring up, but the first one is kind of the risk to do what felt authentic to you and what felt kind of most aligned with where you wanted your practice to go. And it was probably, somewhat scary might be the wrong word, but it was a risk, right? To kind of like walk away and start something on your own. But when it's 100% aligned with what you want your business to be, it's so worth it. And
if I may interrupt too, yes. And I was, as many healthcare providers are, reaching burnout. And I was in burnout. I was in the hamster wheel. I was not healthy. I was not metabolically healthy. I was a mess. I was inflamed because I wasn't doing what I was passionate about. And it's so interesting when you follow your passion, even with risk, it brings you joy and you get excited and you get out of bed and you're energized and you're jazzed. And so even though it can be, and I agree, I think it can be scary actually, to go out on your own and maybe do something differently than the status quo or the norm. I think when you sit with yourself every day, you actually find, wow, I'm actually very genuinely happy because I'm following my heart, and so I think that is really important too, as you're writing out your business plan and your mission statement and your target audience and all these things that we can unpack a little bit more as you build a business. But I just encourage everyone, life is short and you have to follow your passions and your heart. You really do.
Yes. Yeah. I think the nervous system and the body keeps that score so much of like, does this feel aligned? You can like tell yourself and you can like put yourself through the motions. But like you said, that inflammation, whether it be your hormones or cortisol, right? All of that stuff gets affected by feeling like you're pushing yourself through motions that don't feel aligned or through a business model that doesn't feel like it's really what you want to be doing. And sometimes those things are huge teachers if we're able to listen or if we're wise enough to listen, because a lot of that, it's just a whisper to like something's not right. And so often we chase it physiologically with, supplements and whatnot. But how many times is it that we just need to kind of redirect our path and that solves so much.
That's right. And I find with anyone truly with anyone I've spoken to has done this, it always works out. They're always so happy they did it, even though that transition period can be challenging. Once you come out of it, it's generally the right choice. So believe in yourself.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So what I would love to kind of switch gears to a little bit is we've talked about the fact that you rebranded once and then you rebranded again. And it's funny because I had been like putting out my slides for one of my next solo show, and it was about personal brand and how I believe that so many coaches think it's like the colors and the logo and the font. And there's so much more that goes into it than that, I believe. And so tell us a little bit about kind of when you rebranded, what that process meant for your business and why it was important. And maybe then you touched upon it a little bit, but why then it was important to rebrand.
Yeah. So it's really important to write down your intentions. So you need to know, what do you want your voice to be, your tone? What's your mission statement? What are your top objectives with your brand? Who is your target audience and what do they want? What's important to them? This is so much more important, I think, than fonts and colors and logos. That part's fun. But if you answer these questions first, what's authentic and important to you, then the logo will come and then all of that comes. So for example, at the time, it was very important for me to be considered part of the community because I was worried, this was probably subconscious, but I was worried about being ostracized from the community because I was changing my practice. So that's why I called it No Po Kids. I was here for the community, and then you'll see my tagline was a whole body approach. So I wanted to make it very clear that the way I practice dentistry was different. I wanted to look beyond your child's mouth. I'm a pediatric dentist, and really look at your whole child, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually too. Okay. And then in my logo, I had a heart. There were two O's in NoPo. So one of the O's had a heart and one of the O's had a tooth. And that was intentional because it was dentistry meets heart. And that is both, again, physically, but also emotionally too. So it's important to know, and like, who are my target audience? Well, it's generally moms who care about whole body health, moms who are worried about the state of the world essentially, and like keeping their family safe and looking for alternatives, and feeling frustrated with that they weren't getting the right answers. And so I did this not only with my office, but then my personal brand online too. It's like, how do I want to communicate? I had to decide, am I speaking to my colleagues or am I speaking to moms? And that's very different. And it generally, we are trained as providers to speak to colleagues. Like, you need to one up, like, who's the smartest person in the room? Who can be more impressive? But I realized that wasn't serving anyone. That was serving my own ego. And that really wasn't helping in the way I wanted to. I needed to speak to parents. I needed to speak to children. And so that was really important for me to hone in that tone and not act like the doctor, like I'm better than you, the ego, the I know what's best for you. It was more, I have to establish that I'm equal to you and we are a team. And I'm here for you. You know, I'm just here to educate with what I know could help you, but it's also important for you to be the guide. I'm not here to boss you around. I'm just here if and when I'm needed, sort of. So, and then all of that kind of goes back into your brand, you know, and it just kind of, it will all come together. But I do recommend everyone sit and do this exercise where you create your mission statement and the values that are important to your business, and who's your target audience? What do they want? How can you help them? What value are you adding to them? And what's your voice? You know, that's really important. And then that will kind of translate into the logo and everything. And that is important. Those things are important. But I agree with you. It's so much more than that. It's so much more than just the logo on your website. It really is the whole vibe. You know, it's the vibe of your brand. And you do need to decide what you want that to be.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the point about, you know, being able to show up in a way that is serving your community, your listeners, your followers, your clients, whoever they may be, rather than trying to sound like the most brilliant person in the room in case a colleague is listening, right? Yeah. Like somebody else that knows as much as you. Because I think, like, especially with social media, we can get caught up with, do I sound so super smart? But sometimes that doesn't build that like, know, and trust that the people you're trying to help actually grab onto. They just kind of take it as like, okay, this like makes sense, but also like, I can't reach that.
Totally. It's a work in progress too. I still struggle with this. And with my content, it's something I try to always be mindful of, and it still sneaks in. It is that, are my colleagues listening? What would they say about this? Would they agree with this? Would they agree that I said roof of the mouth instead of palate? You know, like silly things like that. But again, you have to say, who is my audience? I want to make sure my education is relatable and attainable. I don't want to speak over people's heads. And this is like health coaching, right? If you throw too much at someone when they're not ready, they shut down. Okay. And you're not serving any purpose that way. So, you know, there's philosophies that you should speak at like you're speaking to a 10-year-old, or, you know, there's people will say a 7th grade level, an 8th grade level, a 3rd grade level. There's all these ideas, but just speak as basically as you can to get the point across. You don't need to one up anyone. Because at the end, and this includes on your one-on-one encounters with your patients, you know, you want to earn trust and rapport, but specifically citing the details of a PubMed meta-analysis and systematic review, unless they ask for that, that can be intimidating, and you may lose your audience. And so it's really important to stay engaged. And I just really appreciate it when all providers kind of ditch the ego, that we're all just out here on an equal playing field trying to help each other.
Yes. And ultimately trying to serve the people that you're trying to help, which is your clients, your patients. And if you're trying to impress colleagues, it's hard to do that as well. And I think the point that you made too about being able to give the client, if you're speaking in ways that feel way too overwhelming, I always say the only plan or education that's going to work is the one that's attainable and understandable. And so if a client feels like you've just like suggested 15 supplements and they never taken one, and you're giving them all sorts of scientific explanations of why their adrenals are shutting down, they're like, whoa, I don't get any of this, so I'm going to do nothing.
Exactly. And and you shut down and you've lost an opportunity. And that's also important to meet people where they're at, and this is so important as a provider. We might know after reading a patient's intake and seeing their labs and listening to their story, we might know what they need, like in great detail, but are they ready for it yet? No, we have to peel back layers and add on and chip away. And that's ultimately how you're going to have the most success. It's the same if someone's trying to quit smoking or it's just like, it's anything. Like you just have to understand it's small steps forward can have profound impacts, and you can't throw too much at people at once. And this is really important with brand building too, and I think being relatable. I just don't, we're in a different time now. And I think because of access to education online, and certainly now AI, it's changed the game, and patients and clients, they are very educated now. And I'm so thrilled they can be advocates for themselves. So, you're just there to help fill in the gaps, I think, and to help guide them in areas maybe that they're missing with their own life. But as we all know, most humans know what they need to do. Instinctually and internally, I know I need to drink more water and electrolytes, but how can I be supported to do that? Yeah. And that's really our role, teacher. Doctor means teacher. And I do think of us all, healthcare providers, as just guides, right? We're educators and we're guides.
Yes, which helps clients, patients feel less judged. And then when we feel less judged and more supported, we're able to make better choices and move forward in a way that is more positive rather than like from a place of shame and all of that. Yeah. So I completely agree.
And they'll open up more to you too. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get messages and DMs of saying, I wanted to ask my provider this, or question this, or say no thank you to this, but then I just got too scared. And that they're varying personality differences, but that if I heard that about someone coming to see me, I would be so sad. I would be so sad, because I really just want to feel like it's an open book and it's a safe space. You need to create a safe space for your patients. And it takes a little time to earn trust. I don't want to be dismissive about that, but I really think that should be the main focus, especially as you're building your business. Is that you want to be a place where people can trust you and feel safe and empowered to take their health into their own hands.
Yes, because that's what conventional medicine, I think, is missing so much of, is it's just a revolving door of 10-minute appointments with no actual understanding. And that's really where, I've had clients just break down in tears because they finally feel, quote, heard, right? Yeah. It's just them. And again, the nervous system needs that in order to move forward with healing. So how someone feels in your presence is so much of setting them up for success, I believe. Yes.
Yes. And that's part of your brand too, is truly your energy, right? It really is. So it's, before I walk into any room, I do a moment of deep breathing and clarity. It's just a couple of seconds, but I have to reset, because maybe that last patient, it was emotional, or someone was upset, or frustrated, or they were sad about the diagnosis of their child. And then you do have to kind of you have to judge yourself and prepare yourself for this next client encounter. And so that's really important. Just your presence and your energy. You're going to help a lot more people if you're mindful about that, I think.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, can we talk a little bit about, so I know you mentioned that it was a little bit more of like a localized brand, but what happened when you rebranded from the first time to the second time? So you kind of had this opportunity vision to go broader. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, it's really new. It just happened just a couple months ago. And so we are now called Bloom Kids Dentistry, which obviously, you think growth and rejuvenation. And so we've opened another office, and there's another wonderful provider who's like-minded that practices there. And then we have the idea, the intention, well, it's in the works now to open a couple more, still kind of regional, and we hope eventually to spread throughout the United States. So it was just important, again, what word or phrase exemplifies what we are offering at the office compared to, like, and I'm just throwing these out. This is not specifically targeted at anyone, but like My Kids Smile or Smile Makers or The Kids Dentist, or, like these kind of generic brands for pediatric dentistry, because that's what I can speak to. But Bloom to me is growth and rebirth and kind of a reset. And how can we optimize and how can we thrive? So it was really important that if someone were just looking online and saw Bloom Kids Dentistry, I hope that would say, I wonder if they take a more root cause approach. It's, at least to me, I hope it was successful. It just already shows them it's a little bit different before they even pop on the website.
Yes. Well, when you said that, and you also said like smile dentistry,
Yeah.
Bloom to me feels so much more like internal out versus like smile is just like aesthetically what you see, right? And so many dentists are just like fixing the aesthetic and not necessarily, right, just that
Compartmentalized. It's just compartmentalized. Yeah.
Yes. Whereas like Bloom, you think like something can't bloom unless you're working at the bottom and it's kind of coming up. So yeah, absolutely. I think resonates with me.
Great.
Yeah. And so you're branching out mostly in the Pacific Northwest.
Right now, and then it will be the West Coast, and then it will probably go over to the East Coast, and then we'll fill in. That's the intention. I would really like an office at least in one region, so the Northeast and the Southwest and the South and Midwest, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. So,
yeah. Okay. So with the kind of new rebrand of the, more widespread with Bloom, anything else that kind of went into it for you that you feel like is kind of from a business standpoint, really impactful, just beyond pediatric dentistry and could kind of speak to anybody practicing holistically or in the health industry?
Yeah, a few things. I do believe you have to practice what you preach as best we can. To err is human. I am by no means perfect, but you really do need to be looked at as a leader and a mentor in many of these ways. So it's sort of the oxygen mask analogy. Like, you have to fix yourself first before you can fix other people. And we're all works in progress, but that's important, I think. And especially if you have a team, I have a pretty big team at my office. And as your businesses grow, you will probably have some help. People will look up to you as the provider, and they will look to you also. And it's just important from a culture standpoint too, that you all embrace the same philosophy. I think I do think office culture and just business culture is really important. So how you treat your team, again, I really try to think of my team as my equals. And the stories you hear of providers flying off the handle for some of the most minor issues, I think, the people who micromanage and they just don't ever offer trust. They can't delegate. That it doesn't create a great office culture. I truly believe every human is doing the best they can, and they want to produce good work, and they want to impress their boss, if you will, or whoever is the face of the brand they're working for. But it's really important to be kind. I know it's so cliche, but if you ask someone to do something and they do it completely incorrectly from what you asked them to, you know, just no shame. Just no shame. No one did it intentionally. So I think office culture is really important, and brand culture too. And just how you treat people helping you. You have to just treat them like equals, and value them as humans. And that will be that your clients will see that, because then, like, I have a lot of assistants. So I trust that when my assistants went with them one-on-one, they are further spreading my message and my voice and my brand for me, because we have a great connection, and I hope they respect me because I respect them too. And so no one can do this alone. None of it. You have to know that it's okay to ask for help, and that you just have to. I think, again, it just comes back to letting go of the ego, and that will just help spread your message so much. I do remember a faculty member once saying to me, do it right the first time. It takes longer to redo a mistake in the future. So this was kind of specific to dentistry, but it could apply to anything. But let's say I'm doing a filling, and I know it's not quite right, but I'm like, I don't really have time to fix this right now. We'll just see what happens. He was like, do it right the first time. And the same goes with all aspects of your business. Take that extra time to really deliver while you have that client in front of you, or that patient in front of you, or that team member in front of you. And then also, this faculty member also said the same thing about money. If you always do what's right, the money will come. And I remember that. I still think of that. And I was told that almost 20 years ago, meaning, like, let's say I do something, a filling, and it fails, but I know it failed because maybe the kid was eating a Tootsie Roll or something. I often will redo those for free at least once. It's just things like that. And a lot of dentists wouldn't do that. They would say, absolutely not, I'm going to charge you for it. But I will tell you, that's internal marketing. That's free marketing. That just feels good. Families are so appreciative, and it just creates a lot more trust. So, we don't need always nickel and dime everything. This isn't like keeping score. But if you always do what's right, the money will follow, and do it right the first time. I really believe with health coaching too, and just patient management it's an important message.
Yes. And, money in the flow is so much energetic that when you energetically have the right intention behind something, like, yes, it almost always comes back tenfold than what that one filling. And not that it's about the money, right? But it's just a flow of abundance. Yeah. When you show up in the world, without that like scarcity of like, yeah, I'm definitely going to, charge this client. I have a quick story. I had placed a pizza order at a place down the street from my mom's. They never put my order in. I got there. I waited 35 minutes. They were like, we're going to put it right in. I found out 40 minutes later that it actually never went in the oven. The place was slammed. The pizzas were just like stacked up. Long story short, I had waited it was almost 2 hours, like from the time that I placed the original order to when I got pizza to my kids. But it ended with the owner. They don't deliver. It ended up with the owner taking the pizza to my mom's house in the end. And I will always go back there.
I had chills. I like tearing up, because that is such a beautiful human offering. Yep. Like, we all make mistakes, all of us, and so many things are beyond our control, and just owning it and trying your best to fix it. But unfortunately, so many people get defensive, and that is what a wonderful human. And you know what? You are singing the praises of that place, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I wrote a review. I wrote him a message after. I told everybody, because that's business. And it's not getting it perfect every time. And it's the human experience. He was like, listen, this is like, what a S show. He's like, I am so sorry. Where do you live? He actually had no idea how close I was. He said, where do you live? I could have lived 5 towns over.
Yeah.
Said, we'll bring this to you as soon as it's done.
Yeah. People
Yeah.
love honesty. They love honesty. That's integrity. And I agree
Vulnerability.
with,
To
yeah,
say like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is
uh,
what a mistake. Yeah.
how can you be upset with that? That's the thing. It's like, why do people complain? It's because you're trying to cover something up, be dismissive or downplay something that really happened, or it's usually about money. You're not communicative about finances. And that same thing happens too. If someone shows up and they're furious because I was told it was X amount of dollars and now it's X plus Y, a lot of times I say, you're right. Like, I mean, most of the time, like, we'll write it off. No big deal. I don't need that furious parent going off writing Yelp reviews and telling all the friends at the playground hangout about what a money hungry provider I am, because I'm not. So it's in people always say, like, you want to appreciate your value and respect your value and set boundaries. But again, there's abundance mindset and there's scarcity mindset. And I agree, you said that earlier. And I just think we don't need the scarcity mindset. It's not helpful to your business. I mean, this is what we're talking about, brand building. It won't help you build a successful business. It just won't. People will feel that energy and it won't resonate. But the opposite, kindness, lack of ego, empathy, ownership, it just, I mean, this is free marketing. Don't underestimate the power of word of mouth. It is profound.
More than social media,
powerful.
more than so many. Yes.
Yeah.
And that saying of like, no one will necessarily remember what you said, but everyone will remember how you made them feel. And like, I always remember that when it comes to like clients is like, are they going to remember all the specifics about whatever I told them, the adrenals and how they need to sleep. But hopefully at the end of a client interaction or, a patient interaction, they leave a little better for having a conversation.
There are studies to show that just by having a compassionate provider, that there are measurable health benefits to that. So, I hug a lot of my parents. Like I get a lot of second and third opinions, and there have been a lot of shaming and blaming at previous offices. So you can see it's usually moms, like their nervous system just relax and like, at some, after a few minutes of getting to know me, and a lot of times they'll just be crying, and I'll always say, may I give you a hug? And, and just saying it's okay, everything's going to be okay. And it means so much. Like sometimes that's what your patient needs.
Yes.
It's just, like you said, to feel heard and respected and told, especially moms, just told you're doing a great job. You're doing a beautiful job taking care of your babies. And like that's healthcare as far as I'm concerned. So when you're creating your business plan, just factor all these things in. Like who do you want to be? Like how do you want to be seen in the public, in the community? And then I'll also just add social media. I mean, I know it makes some people uncomfortable, but it's such a great tool to reach more people too. So don't be afraid to use that as a marketing tool for your business. And I will tell you, as someone who is on camera a lot and interviewed a lot, I have imposter syndrome still. I get nervous still before interviews and podcasts and before I record. I don't think that ever goes away. I tell my girls this, they're in theater. And I say, do you know Taylor Swift? She gets nervous every time before she goes on stage. She does. And we all do, but it's just putting it yourself out there. The people who are most successful are the ones that just do it. It's so Nike cliche, but just do it and people will love it. They're going to love just you being out there. So try to find internal confidence that way too.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's there's never a perfect time, a perfect feeling. You have to just step out and do it anyway.
Out of your comfort zone. And that's where true success can come from, I think. So, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Can you tell us all the places that you show up? So social media, where others can find more about either Bloom or a personal page?
Absolutely. So I do have a website, drstaci.com, doctor spelled out, and it's staci.com. And I have a newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter where I unpack top topics, things that I can't cover in detail on social media. So we deep dive on different topics and protocols and things on my newsletter. And then I do offer online consultations too. Essentially, it's health coaching, but with oral health. So I will give second opinions and things, and offer nutritional counseling and what have you for your child. I do kids 13 and under. And then you can see me in person in Portland, Oregon at Bloom Kids Dentistry. I'm the North Portland location. And then I'm on Instagram quite a bit, Dr._Staci. And then I'm on TikTok a bit. And I float around the other pages, but I'm not very good at keeping up with them. I'm mostly on Instagram if you want to see more educational content.
Okay, great. And of course, we'll be attending the Reimagining Health Summit this October.
I can't wait.
Yes, you were one of I didn't listen to a ton last year, but I was like, I have to listen to Dr. Staci. Always such a wealth of information, so well spoken. So can't wait to hear more there. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview today. Really appreciate everything that you shared. I think it was so valuable for our listeners.
I hope it helps. Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care.